For the last 3 years, between recording segments of the D6 generation, Russ, Craig, and Rafe have had various conversations that have spanned the interests of gamerdom worldwide. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, The Lost Chapters.
We're talking RPGs, we're talking RPGs. Oh,
wow, someone's got energy. Holy mackerel.
It's all about the inspiration.
Did you get one of those double strong ones?
Inspires me.
Did you get one of those double strong ones over here at Dunks? I'm gonna get another latte.
I
and maybe
got a turbo shot.
Yeah,
I need to get a chocolate glazed donut right about now.
Right. So, Craig, okay. Rafe, what are we talking about, Craig?
First of all, my name is Craig.
Bob.
I feel like I'm in an AA meeting, and it's all your fault.
I've been clean and sober for 6 months. Well,
I've been without caffeine for at least 2 days.
Right.
Okay, so today, with our Lost Chapter, we're going to talk about inspiration, and we're going to kind of spread it out. Talking to the gentleman from Green Ronin and Mutants and Masterminds got us thinking, and of course, we got a lot of role-playing that's under our belts recently, and a couple things that are coming up in the near term. So
you bringing up Death Watch again, Craig? You're trying to put me down again?
No, I got all kinds of cool stuff going on as far as Adepticon goes, though. Yeah,
you've been a busy little bee, huh?
It's turning into a star-studded game of Death Watch. Let's just put it that way.
Now I'm getting nervous.
No pressure.
You're getting nervous.
Are
I'm
you
running
nervous?
it.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's jamming? You are jamming?
Yeah.
I am not GMing.
Right now, just right now. Okay, and we're breaking the news now on the Lost.
Here it is. You're going to earn your dollar right here. You get to hear. You heard it first.
Exactly. Ross Watson is the designer of the game.
You've got a GM for the designer, dude.
I asked him to GM it. He's like, I'd rather you do it.
Well, that's because he knew who else is going to be there. List the next person.
No, because he also sent me a really nice email. He listened to the Lost Chapter where we talked about the adventure, and he said it gave him all kinds of ideas and inspiration.
Ooh, look at that.
And all kinds of cool stuff. So he said he wanted to go into that adventure, or go into my adventure. So that was cool.
Cool.
And then Vincent from the Black Library, we're going to go to dinner with him that night.
Right.
And so far, Nathan Long, the guy who has picked up the Gotrex and Felix series for the Black Library.
Right.
Okay, so no schlub.
Right.
They'll be joining us for the game also.
Mm-hmm.
And currently, there is a chance, we don't know for sure because he may want to bow out because he may not want to stay up late, but Dan Abnett and his wife will both be there, and they may want to play also.
Ross Watson, Dan how are you even gonna not?
That's insane.
How are you not gonna seize up, dude? Seriously. What are you gonna do?
I'm already seizing up.
Craig, you're forgetting about somebody very important and very cool.
That would be Rafe.
Mm-hmm. Hollywood.
Yeah. Hollywood.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you're like, and the Space Marine does it, and Abnett's like, no, they don't do that. What are you going to do then?
I love Dan Abnett, and I think we're probably going to be on the same page as for Space Marines if he should end up playing.
Right.
I don't think I'm in any danger of having any of my characters do something a Space Marine wouldn't do.
All right, good.
So anyway,
what would a Space Marine do?
Slides into ziggurats?
No, there will be no mudslides into ziggurats.
So let me ask you.
There will be no blood sacrifices.
So
that was supposed to.
So how do you get inspiration for running a RPG?
Oh, Craig, it's always Russ bringing it back home.
Seriously, how do you get inspiration for running an RPG with these kind of people?
They're paying money for this. We need to give them their money's worth. Well, you know what? They love us.
I'm just saying content.
You love us. You really, really love us. Okay, anyway, yeah, back on task. So inspiration. So my theory was, why don't we talk a little bit about the inspiration that we've gotten for the RPG adventures that we've run in the past. And then Rafe was like, well, what about painting schemes? And then what about movies that you watch? So really we're just going to talk about inspiration as a concept.
Right.
And where I would like to start, interestingly enough, is with you, Russ. The audience knows you have been absolutely jonesing to run a Dresden RPG for almost a year now, right?
Right, yes.
So it seems like that would be sort of a simple answer, right? Like, where do you get your inspiration from the Dresden for the Dresden RPG? Well, that would be the Dresden Files,
right? The books.
Okay. So why don't you talk a little bit about where your brain is for that?
Well, actually, it's kind of funny because we did run a little weird thing back at Gen Con last year, and one of the things I'm excited about with the Dresden RPG is this idea that it's collaborative. So the GM doesn't sit down and say, you're going to be playing in this city, and these are the bad guys in the city, but rather, the players all say, okay, what city are we going to do it in? And let's say you pick Boston. And then one player might say, you know what, I think there should be a vampire coven in the South End. And the group's like, okay, there's a vampire coven in the South End. Boom. So you just keep doing
vampire bloodsuckers in the Southie.
Right. Why not? Right. Which makes getting to Mike's really tricky. But anyway, so
that's the North End.
Whatever, details.
Wow, you just sweets connoisseur have just opened yourself up to a world of ridicule.
It doesn't really matter. It's all good. The point of the thing is though is you can go to local cities. But what also you can do, which I thought interesting, is we did it with Gen Con. We did the Gen Con thing. But what's been inspiring me as a GM, it's kind of funny. I drew. I have some very clear ideas in my head of what I want the intro part to be that brings the characters together.
Cool.
And I'm keeping it very, very general because I don't know what the character's going to. Obviously, I don't know what the character's going to be. But one of the places I actually got a lot of this stuff from is video games. Because there's some very strange things that happen in video games, and they use some really bizarre characters and interesting ideas. And a couple of these games have these demons trapped in different objects. And I thought about, well, that'd be kind of neat in the Dresden universe where they have demons, and so I've really gotten into this idea of centering the campaign around one of these sort of things. So I guess it just depends on where you get your inspiration from. Mine is whenever I play something, certain elements of things get stuck in my head. And then later when I go to come back and actually create something, I'm like, oh, that was really cool. I have to put that in this module. And I try to pull from things where I know the players haven't really done it before. Like this particular game, they may not have played. So I know that it'll be something unique they not really haven't experienced before. So I try to pull from things that I know the player group maybe doesn't, that's something I'm interested in as a geek, but maybe they're not.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Now, wasn't there a TV show in the 90s that was about demon haunted objects, and this team had to go and find them? And because that was a pretty cool show. I can't remember what.
Yeah. Well, isn't the Warehouse 13 like that now? Sort of.
Kind of, but it's not really demon infested stuff. It's
sort of
just
weird
more
objects,
like all kinds of weird things. But,
yeah.
But no, it sounds to me like that's a very, because that could totally. Now the interesting thing is when we chatted this up before we started recording, you were like, "Well, obviously I'll be getting the inspiration from the books,"
right?
And right there, that's not in the books, but it would totally fit in that universe.
Well, that's where that came. Where that came from was Bob. So in Dresden, there's this character Bob who's a spirit, and he's stuck in a skull.
The skull, yeah.
And he's Dresden's sort of consulting thing, and so I was like, well, Bob's kind of neat, but you know what? You can't use Bob because that's Dresden's thing. But I was like, ooh, this would be kind of cool. So like, it sort of comes from the book, but then it ties into other things I've done. So it's sort of like, I guess I don't know. I try to mash things together as much as I can. Sometimes I've taken it too far. Like there was this time when I was much younger. I was running a Star Frontiers campaign, and Star Frontiers, for those who don't know, who are much younger, was one of the original sci-fi settings that TSR came up with shortly after D&D. And I was, it's all sci-fi, but I got into this really cool idea. I just watched the Star Trek episode again, I think, where there's this one where they go down this planet, and it's original Star Trek, and it's a sort of medieval castle, and all these gods have it run it's all technology, but it's all run like a castle, like they're wizards. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'll do that for Star Frontier. So I went in, and I created this whole robot steel maze they got trapped in, and there was a steel robot minotaur, and the whole thing, and the whole time, and this is the very first adventure, and they're all like, dude, if you wanted to play D&D, just tell us. I'm like, no, I didn't really want to try to be cool sci-fi. And
that is kind of funny, though.
It was kind of funny, yeah. So I kind of
now. Do you think
went too far?
See, I like that with the inspiration. Do you think you can mimic something too much? Because we've talked about don't be afraid to make your own Fellowship of the Ring. Don't be afraid to make your own Star Wars saga. But can it go too far? Can the inspiration lead you too close to the original?
I think that's an excellent question, but I think the answer is it totally depends on your group.
Right.
I mean, if you're coming from a group where they love Lord of the Rings, they're probably not going to enjoy you blatantly ripping it off. You're not in Middle-earth, but you might as well be. You've just changed all the names.
Right.
For instance, the D&D game that the perennial D&D game that Russ and his brother and Joe and all them were in high school was pretty much a absolute blatant ripoff of a fantasy series that I don't think any of them had read. And then when they started talking to me about all the gods and stuff, I was like, "Oh my God, you've got to read the Magician's Apprentice." And then people started reading the Magician's Apprentice and went, "Oh yeah, look at that." Did it take away from it? Not at all, because I think Tovar did an awesome job of that. It was Tovar who DM'd that, right?
That one,
Russ?
yes, that was the older one, yeah.
And I mean, he did an awesome job because he took his inspiration from a book or a series of books that was A, awesome, and B, none of his friends were familiar with.
Right.
So it gave him a framework, and their adventure had nothing to do with the books. Their adventure was all his own devising, but the world,
right,
which I think is an awesome idea for a GM, the world was created on the world of Medcamia and from the novels.
Right.
So everything was in place for Tovar. He didn't have to worry about, oh crap, I forgot what god was this and which god. Oh, does this god have a temple? Instead he had all that, which let him do stick to the adventure while at the same time having an awesome world to role play in that his players weren't familiar with. See what I'm saying?
No, you're right, and that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, where if you can figure out something that inspires you that you know your players haven't been exposed to, they'll give them the feeling of something new while you have the comfort of something you know well.
Right.
So I think there's definitely something to be said for that if you want to ground it. I mean, it's certainly awesome to make everything from whole cloth, but it's also a lot harder to do.
It is much harder, yeah. Now, Rafe, why don't you tell us a little bit about the inspiration? Well, actually, no, I want to go a little bit more into the Dresden Files because I'm still intrigued.
Yes.
Russ, what parts of the book, first of all, you have to assume that everybody's going to have read the Dresden Files books in the group that you're going to choose.
Or at least most of them.
Exactly.
I actually haven't finished them yet. I still got to catch up. I'm still working on that.
Right, but I mean, if you've read the first 4 or 5, then you're very familiar with the world.
I'll be using Audible.
Very, very good.
That was smooth.
I used Audible yesterday.
So anyway, so what was your question?
My question is, give us a macro view of what you're bringing from the books into the adventure. And I know it's a collaborative effort and blah blah blah, but Russ is going to be in charge, so it's going to be a very directed collaborative effort.
Well, I think what I want to do is I'll give you the because I'm not sure anybody in the group's going to have heard this podcast part, and it's just the intro. So it's like reading the intro to the thing.
Right.
But my idea is that there's going to be a character, an NPC who, and this is going to take place in Boston, so it's a city we all know well. Although apparently I don't know where Mike's is located, but assuming we all know pretty well, we'll know the city well. And so this character is going to be like, hey, he's going to have heard of Harry Dresden. And he's going to think, mistakenly, that Harry's a super famous wizard, who he is, but he's more infamous than famous, right, in some cases. And he's going to think that Harry's making all this mad money being this well-known wizard in Chicago. So he's going to want to build the same sort of thing in Boston. And so I'm taking that idea from the book and saying, okay, well so this guy is going to try to recruit his own team and make a profit at this thing, right? Uh-huh. Which doesn't make – and that's sort of the idea from – so taking – the idea of what Dresden is, which is this wizard for hire, publicly known person, even though it's a crazy concept because most people don't really know wizards are even real.
Yeah.
And doing the same thing again, so it's similar.
That
but
sounds fun.
Different. So hopefully it'll be interesting.
That's a great idea.
But it's going to be close, and that way the characters, because it's all over first time with Dresden. I don't want to go way off to Plantation. This way it's going to be like, oh, we are kind of all playing Harry Dresden, but we're not, because we're this team of people who are not as talented as he is. So we're all relying on each other.
I like it.
And that's what's going to happen, hopefully. And we'll see what we get for players, and I don't know what the problems are going to be, because that's going to be the collaborative part where they're going to decide what's in town, and that kind of thing. And then this piece of demonic furniture, for lack of a better, I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah. Don't give anything.
It's going to be part of the overall driving. I'll be able to use that to kind of influence the way the direction.
I like it. Instead of Bob, it's just going to be, a Barca Lounger or something.
Well, it's going to be.
I like Barca Lounger.
Right. Actually, it's funny. I was just watching Being Human, and which is a series, and the werewolf says to the vampire. The vampire's getting all really kind of sullen. He's like, "You're just."
Is that the beginning of a joke?
No, he says he's
so this vampire says to a werewolf.
He does. He says, "You're just sitting around all day. You're like a piece of evil furniture." He's like, "I'm an evil furniture now." It's funny. Had to be there, I guess. But
wow, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But I'm glad, as your friend, Russ, I'm glad that you got such
I had a good laugh. So you're enjoying Being Human. Maybe you'll get the reference. But Yeah, so I'm excited to try it out. And I think it's a germ of an interesting idea, and I'm interested to see where the players want to take it to. So we'll see.
Now, I think that's also interesting because it provides another really important thing for your players, which is a hook for each player, which is, an idea that gets them into the story.
Right.
So you could have a player who's like, we'll call him, John Doe from Boston. He's a friend of John Doe, but he doesn't take this whole thing seriously. So, I don't know does it work with player? Like, what are they do they have character classes? Or?
Well, basically you can be almost anything that's ever appeared in the Dresden verse, right? So you can be like Michael, one of the Crusaders, right?
That's kind of cheesy because there's only 3 of them.
Well, right, but you could be one. You could be one of the fair folk. It could be a fairy or a possessed person. You can be. I was actually surprised at how much depth there is. You can be a wizard, of course.
Yeah.
You can be one of the wizards. There's like different classes of wizards where some of them are full wizards and some of them aren't. You can be a sorcerer. There's all the different variations and flavors. So you can go anywhere you really want. You can be a werewolf, of course, like Billy. So you can go anywhere with that stuff.
Listen to Russ dropping names. So he's proven his Dresden cred.
So you can do whatever you want with it, which is kind of neat. So it'll be interesting to see. So if someone wants to be a werewolf or a ghost or whatever, we can work it all in because it'll be sort of like
you can be a ghost.
I think so. You can even be a
wow.
It'd be a lot of stuff. It's pretty interesting. I think you can work any of it in.
This would be why the game is 2 books, each one 1,000 pages.
Oh, I was looking at them again. They're freaking huge. They're ginormous. It's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, it's a really cool. I mean, it's funny because you think about Dresden, you're like, well, you're going to want to be a wizard, but no, there's all kinds of cool things you can do.
Right.
And you can be a human.
What's interesting is, I think with Dresden, I don't have that same role playing fear that I have, where I'm like, I don't know, how do you play Star Wars? The games are just so, the lore is just so grained in my head, but somehow with Dresden, I think it's just open-ended enough where I wouldn't have that same problem.
Well, I don't think I think it is. The open-ended may be part of it, but it's a totally different universe that's much more casual and gritty and real to me. Whereas Star Wars is much more iconic and mythical, really.
Well, there's enough corners in the Star Wars galaxy that you can make up your own stuff. But
absolutely.
But I agree. I see what you're saying. Yeah,
that was my issue with Star Wars was that I just couldn't see myself in this mythological. I mean, I don't know, but it's neither here nor there.
Right. Neither here nor there.
Right. But no, but I think that sounds really cool, Russ. I'm intrigued.
Should be fun. I can't wait so hopefully I can find time to do that in the near future. Thinking spring now. I'm very excited.
Yes. Well,
spring is time for rebirth.
It is March,
creation.
which goes out like a lamb.
Right.
Now, Rafe.
Yes.
Speaking of inspiration.
Yes.
I would like for you to start sharing a little of your inspiration from the Dark Heresy campaign where you almost killed us all.
Mm-hmm.
And then how that ties in, because I thought you used that really well as an inspirational lever on your Death Watch campaign. It's like, where did you get your ideas for the Dark Heresy? Like, first that was a long time ago, so you might want to do a quick recap from memory with no bullets whatsoever.
Yeah, I can. I can actually kind of remember. Very much like Russ, I had my original Dark Heresy campaign idea from System Shock, the old PC game. And in System Shock, you're you basically kind of wake up out of a deep slumber, and your spaceship has been taken over, and you're guided through the maze of the spaceship through picking up various data recorders that.
I remember you saying that. Yep.
Yeah, that are the kind of your guide. But not all the data recorders are your guide. Sometimes it's like, the data recorder is like this. Guys, I'm in the engine room and I really don't understand. There's a really strange fungus, and I think, wah! And that's the data recorder in the game of System Shock. So I decided to ghost, no pun intended, that onto a spaceship, and I was going to have the same picked recorders, data recorders on the crew, and so I had alternating ones that would advance the real storyline and just kind of random ones. And I just created System Shock on a ship set in the 41st millennium. And that's how how I started that.
And now we're talking. You've done 2 sessions, right?
Yes,
because you had one session that went really, really well, and that was the one you're talking about now, where we were going through that ship, and Dave stole the inquisitorial rosette, and we all thought he was going to die any minute.
Yep.
And that one really went well. I think everybody really enjoyed it. And then the next one was much harder. So, like, how did you go from?
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, see, maybe I should stick to my inspirational muse, because the first one was my own muse, and that's why I think
that's right.
People really liked it. The second one was a hodgepodge of pulling from this Dark Heresy book and pulling from that Dark Heresy book and pulling from this Dark Heresy book and kind of sticking them all together.
Yeah.
And the only muse that I had there, which you guys didn't like at all, well, everybody liked the adventure
right
up until the end, and the end was a bound demon, and I used to like that because Dave would take that character in his 40K miniature role-playing games.
Yeah.
Not role-playing games, in the actual miniature battles.
40K, yeah.
40K. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool if they could do this? This was like a bound entity. And this entity is actually, it's called the Burning Man, or the Burning One, I can't remember. He's actually in the creature's anathema.
Ooh.
So he's an actual creature and everything, but I didn't pay attention to the, Majora's
power level.
Yeah, the power level. And I thought I gave a clue to say, now everything you meet in the 41st millennium can kill you and rip your head off, so you might not want to fight it. And he kind of killed all of your guys.
Rafe's rule of RPG: put something in the way and see if they'll run.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, we didn't die. Actually, in that one, we didn't die.
Nope.
We ran. We did ultimately run, but I believe Dave was burned beyond recognition, and I was to the point where I couldn't fight anymore because I had been psychically abused to the point of near coma.
Yes. But I think what Craig's alluding to is I wanted to give the guys, because it was almost the same crew, their chance to beat the snot out of the Burning Man, and he was the main nemesis in the new Death Watch Space Marine game. Yeah. And they did encounter him, and he was going to run away. You guys are going to encounter him 3 times if we ever play again in some version. Maybe it'll be Rogue Trader. You never know. Ooh, it'll be Chaos. It'll be in Chaos. You'll encounter him the 3rd time. He'll be your ally.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath for me playing a game where I'm supposed to be a Chaos Space Marine. Okay. But you go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. It'll have to be everyone else.
You're going to go with Slaanesh, right, Craig? Slaanesh.
Oh, well, if you're going to go all the way.
Right? Go where the fun is. That's what I say.
Exactly. I mean, if you're what's the fun of just corrupting people with snot and mucus when you can really violate them on a regular basis in your role playing?
Yeah. Well, while we're here, let me just say this. First of all, congratulations to Rafe. I don't think we officially talked about it yet.
Thank you.
No, we have not.
For actually predicting that correctly, because I was sure can be that you were totally wrong on that one. First of all,
no,
so was I.
But second of all, now we've talked about this before on emails about how. Why would you play? I mean, really, it's like who would want to play like a Slaanesh Space Marine or a Nurgle? I mean, really, it's kind of gross and a little scary. But then I thought about it depends how the book's set up, because if you think about it, like Vampire the Masquerade in those games, you're playing a freaking evil a vampire, but not always, because there's that archetype of the vampire struggling between his humanity and his vampireness, and do you walk the line? And when you first start dealing with chaos, and the Horus Heresy started this way, right? Where they weren't really, it wasn't so much they wanted to be chaos, it was just they didn't agree with the Emperor, and this looked like a solution, and we're going to use the chaos powers, but we're going to be okay. You know what I mean? So you're kind of like walking that line. So if the game is really about walking that line and maybe failing to walk it, that might be more interesting to me than just, we're going to play a bunch of Khorne Berserkers and just, rape and pillage,
Oh, man. I don't want to segue. I'll just say this, then I'll shut up. But I don't know. Don't you guys ever want to tap into your inner evil?
No, see, here's what inspiration.
Okay.
Well, let me talk about this, because this is important. So it kind of goes back to inspiration again, right?
Not really. But.
I've tried before. I remember back in the days of D&D when, because when I want to play a character, I'm usually inspired to play some kind of character. Go back to inspiration. So I want to play the heroic guy, play the good guy, and I've tried a couple times historically to try being evil. When the I don't remember, old school guys remember this, but there was an issue of Dragon magazine where they printed the anti-paladin, and you could play an anti-paladin.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Oh, we got to try." It was not really fun. I mean, it was sort of. And then I've tried in MMOs. Like this has got me in trouble too. I started being evil, and like back in the day when you could steal people's stuff. You could loot them and steal their stuff.
Wait, you mean MMOs? I thought you meant like
you're actually stealing from
like
people,
Dragon Age and Mass Effect.
No. I mean, no. That's not an MMO. That's an RPG. In an MMO, which is not a role playing game.
Yeah, but you don't play MMOs.
No, I used to. I played Ultima Online. I used to play back in the day when they were very when they weren't all cleaned up for everybody nowadays. When you could actually loot people, so I could walk up to you right in the middle of the city, kill you, and take your stuff.
Yeah,
and be like,
yeah.
"Oh, look, I'm a lawful evil. I'm a lawful evil thief. That's totally legit. Sorry, buddy, you got mugged." Here we are in an alternate reality. You just got mugged by me, and people did that, and that was what they thought, and it was just felt wrong. And then I tried what else? And then even in video games where they're role playing games, where you actually can choose between good and evil, like in the original BioWare games, like Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, where you could be a light Jedi or a dark Jedi. I had a really hard time going dark. I mean, the decisions you literally are being asked like slay children and stuff, like you see in Episode 3. Star Wars, and it's like, I can't do it. Even though it's a game and it's a story, it's like I can't.
Well, it's the same reason why you can't play the Germans.
Exactly. For me, it's too. I can't pretend to be that person. If that makes sense. The role ROLE part of role playing gets in my. That's when people used to always pick on people for playing D&D, and it instills evil. In the original D&D, you were the good guys usually. You were fighting demons and fighting dragons, but you're generally the good guys.
Yeah.
And it was only later editions when people started really examining D&D and figuring out alignments and stuff that made them kind of bad. But generally speaking, most people play the good guys in these things.
Right.
So it's sort of interesting to have that option to play total evil.
Right, and that goes into like almost a dark realm of inspiration. Like seriously, what's inspiring you to be a Slaneshi?
Yeah, what drives you, Rafe, to want to play well? First of all, what would be the Chaos Space Marine you would play if you could? Assuming you can roll them up based on Chaos Gods, which one would you play, and what's your inspiration for playing that?
Me?
Yeah.
Nurgle.
And why?
Nurgle? Because I played a D&D Thieves campaign one time where everybody was a bunch of thieves. I
believe they prefer the term rogue.
Right.
No, it was thieves, but it wasn't a campaign. It was a module. Right. And it was really fun to be able to say, when the two guards were outside of the bank that we had to rob, we were robbing a bank, and it wasn't for some wizard and to get the orb and the blah, blah, blah. We were like robbing a bank, and we were going to get all the loot. And when the two guards were there and you're a thief, you actually got to drop down and kill them. Instead of being like, I can't kill them because I'm a paladin. Like, we didn't disembowel them and dance in their guts. And it was just fun. And so I imagine as a Nurgle, I would just be full of pustulence and pus, and and I'll be like, all right, I issue my swarm of flies on that stupid, no good ultramarine, and I don't picture myself being, like I said, just being, abnormally gross and being like, I rip off his head and eat his neck, or something like that. Like, that's not how I picture it. I picture it just kind of like the fluff of the books, where they're, my character might have come from a situation where he was a glory hound and he was a mayor on some small imperial world, and he was overthrown because he was consorting with chaos cultists, and Nurgle blessed him with his first blessing, and that's how I picture it.
Yeah, those fluff pictures though are pretty nasty, dude. I'm just saying.
Yeah, they're not as bad as they could be. But
I don't know. Any GW, you look at all the GW cast pictures. There's nothing.
It's dark. It's dark.
It's not.
The
on
good
the
guys are dark. Never mind the bad guys.
Right. The good guys are dark enough.
But dark doesn't always have to mean psychotic. Or that's what I think 40K does really well on. Is that a lot of times in modern movies, the Saw movies and all these movies like we were talking about the other day, somebody's psychotic. And I always liked in D&D, and in 40K does this, where you're like, evil doesn't mean always chaos, just pure chaos. They're just going after different goals.
Wait. Let me back
up.
Well,
I would argue that the law supports that, Rafe.
What?
Well, no.
That if you're pure chaos, if you're insane, then you're technically not. You can't be evil because you can't be held responsible. But I would say in a game where you're actually playing a group called chaos, I'm not sure how much water that carries.
Let's back up the bus. What's the name
Well,
again?
if it was pure chaos, I mean, because that's just the name they use instead of evil or something.
No, dude,
like
it is pure chaos.
No, it isn't. If it was pure chaos, they wouldn't get anything done.
They don't get anything done. That's why the Imperium wins.
That's the whole
No.
point.
That's
That's
the whole
why
point.
they haven't destroyed the Imperium.
Right.
No, they haven't destroyed the Imperium because just like the problem with evil, they can't band together long enough without trying to serve their own goals.
Because they're chaos.
So that's not chaos. Pure chaos would mean, like the universe would just explode because nothing will bond together. That's pure chaos.
No, I'm not talking about chaos theory. I'm talking about these guys are chaos.
So that's just their name. That doesn't mean that they. It doesn't mean they all are.
I think we've entered one of those strange little mirror realms, and we should probably just keep.
All
going.
right, so let's just say that the name of the army does not inspire you to how to play the guys.
Correct.
Okay.
But moving back to your inspiration, though, Rafe. So you are really inspired by that one bad guy, though.
Yes.
Right.
That's right.
That's clearly where that inspiration is going because you want him to be in a trilogy of adventures.
That's right. That's right.
And so yeah, so that's another thing that can inspire you. I've done an entire adventure where I was like, well, you know what? I really want them to fight this one kind of thing. And the rest of the adventure kind of you basically justify that final battle with the rest of the adventure. So that's another place you can go for inspiration.
Yeah, and he's just one guy.
Right.
Right.
So that's interesting. For myself, inspiration going like let's see, going back to your birthday last year, the Rogue Trader, yeah.
Yeah.
My inspiration there was I was really excited to play two games that were going simultaneously.
Right.
So everything that happened on my half of that campaign or of that day long session was seriously built. It came out of the desire to have it be able to interlock with all of the stuff that Dave had going on. So we went back and forth and created an adventure that would be two separate parties trying to do something similar. See what I'm saying?
That's interesting.
So it's interesting because you can come at these RPG scenarios from a bunch of different perspectives. So I didn't want necessarily for the bad guys to be orcs. You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily want for the big final battle to be on a space station. But what I wanted was the simplest, straight line from A to B way that I could create an adventure that would parallel like another party having a very similar adventure with very similar goals.
So that's interesting. So your inspiration was more a mechanic or methodology than an actual theme, right?
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. I never would have thought of that as inspiration, but you're absolutely right.
And then you're like, okay, what story can you wrap around this to make it all work, right?
Exactly. And so what we came up with was a series of tests and of course Rogue Trader's awesome because it can be wide open. So you've got actual goals, but but you're not told how to do it.
We do that before. We've done that. Like thinking about that, we did that with the Descent one-off thing we did at Chris's house, Craig.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
We thought about, okay, how can we do a Descent thing with 3 stages and expose everybody to all these different elements and make it sort of a story. And so we did mechanics first and story second. So that was kind of neat. That's kind of
exactly
idea.
Yeah. So I mean, and that was pretty successul, I thought, with the Rogue Trader thing. So
until Josh ruined it
until the very end.
Don't blame Josh.
And so as far as that Rogue Trader thing goes, that was great because it literally was a way that almost think of it as a big cogwheel. And what you had to do is make sure that the spacings of the cogs on the wheel were wide enough so that Dave, with a totally different group of players and a totally different GM style, his could mesh with that wheel at the same way mine was meshing with the wheel on the other side. See what I'm saying?
Right.
I do.
So we had to have a bunch of game mechanics that were already in place so that you guys who were being much more, you had like much more methodical and much more military. You got the platoon of Imperial Guard, and you really went about it, I think, in probably more of a way that that system wanted you to. rather than we're going to requisition the fastest ship and do it ourselves. You guys were more like, we're going to get support from here, we're going to get support from there, we're going to bring this all together. And you guys had some Adeptus Mechanicus stuff. Whereas I think Dave's group was much more, balls to the wall, straight out. Let's just go ahead and do this. And they got themselves I think they had a more warship oriented ship, right?
Yep.
And they went in like a full thrust right at the space station. And the reason it was a space station was that it was a confined space that had multiple entry points.
Right.
So I guess you could do that with a base on the ground too, but then you're dealing with all kinds of different options as opposed to the space station that neither of you control. So how are you going to approach it? Sort of.
Right.
Which then
can I talk about another inspiration I just had?
Yeah, just let me wrap it up really quickly.
Oh yeah. When you're done.
And the reason that I went with orcs is that they're much easier to just kind of throw in as a giant. As a large force that doesn't have to, there's not a lot of thinking. There's not a lot of, you don't have to come up with some giant sinister plot that why the orcs are there.
Plus, it's fun to talk in Cockney as well.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
You gotta need orcs. Orcs.
Oh,
and,
man.
and I mean, it fit perfectly with what we wanted to do because they have spaceships that are really kind of chunky, and you can just have all kinds. We had squigs, and we had the boys, and we had the guys in mega armor, but they were just there. They're orcs, so they just show up and they take stuff, and they like to break stuff. So it really worked. So if you look at it, it starts with I wanted to have an adventure that we could meld two different groups in at the same time that we could kind of control so that they would end up at the end point together, which we did. And then I wanted to have the bad guys that kind of needed to be almost generic, and you can't get much more generic bad guy than
an orc.
Yeah, because they're just kind of like I mean, I guess Tyranids and Chaos are kind of similar in that they don't really need a deep and convoluted story to get them there. But orcs, for some reason, just really appealed to me in that because it was, it could have been the Cockney.
Right.
Okay,
And also,
it was probably the Cockney.
Players of 40K orcs are really kind of just generic and just kind of dumb.
Yeah,
too.
well, ow.
Hey now. 2/3 of us on this podcast play orcs, so you just
have.
suck that up.
Craig's played everything. He doesn't count.
Well, Okay, so what were you going to say, Rafe, about inspiration?
And this will be kind of fun, too. It'll finally give the big reveal on my Play-By Podcast. My whole inspiration with Play-By Podcast was, one of those moments where I'm like, how come D&D adventures always start at the beginning where, the adventure hasn't even happened yet? I'm like, I'm going to start mine at the end. The adventure was over. All the people were dead except for one, Arath, the main character. And the adventure was going to be, what was the adventure? What happened? That was my whole inspiration. And from that, all the other elements just fell into place.
Mm-hmm. That's another cool way to look at it too. And I mean, obviously coming from a different direction again. Yep.
Right.
But I guess my point was not that that's original or how to work, blah, 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 but kind of like I never realized that your Rogue Trader game, that your inspiration was, hey, how do I make this work with two games simultaneously? Like, I didn't know that. And so I was like, to let people know that whatever your inspiration is, once you have it, everything else just sort of goes click, 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 click right into place sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. You need a hook for yourself.
Yes.
And then that allows you to put gives you a framework, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, like Russ was already like, oh, and then there's a piece of furniture, and then they're going to be in Boston, and they're going to be, a duplicate group, but different. I'm like, hey, that's a neat idea. It sounds really fun.
And it's almost like dominoes, except they're falling up. They're falling up into position.
Yeah. I like this topic.
Yeah, I thought it was a good
another one you can do, and great, this goes back to the video game thing, and it's just, Rafe, when you mentioned telling the story backwards, it reminded me very much of the beginning of Dragon Age 2. Because the entire game of Dragon Age...
Well, wait, there's no spoilers.
No spoilers. This happens right from the beginning. The entire Dragon Age game, the second one, is someone telling the story of the character you're playing. So right from the beginning, someone's being questioned about what happened. And it's funny because he starts off with what happened. He goes, okay, I'll tell you. And it cuts, and you're playing this character. and you haven't made the looks of the character up or anything. At the very beginning, it just looks like someone, and you're playing it, and all these things are happening. You're super powerful. You're blowing everything up, and all of a sudden it cuts back to the storyteller, and the person's like, "That's not what happened. You tell me what really happened right now." And he goes, "Okay, I'll tell you what really happened." And then you create your own character, and then it retells the scene, but as whoever you made.
Oh, cool!
So it's kind of cool, and it bounces every once in a while. It bounces back to the storyteller, and so it's sort of an interesting angle because it's sort of like you're playing something that already happened, but at the same time you're writing the story that happened. It's sort of an interesting angle. It's sort of neat, and you could do the same thing with a real RPG as well. In fact, there is a Dragon Age RPG, but you can do the similar idea. I think it's a neat hook, and it's interesting too to me that a small change like that makes the game feel totally new and fresh, even though, yes, it's just yet another fantasy romp, right? But it's the way they did it really makes it feel different and refreshing. So it's kind of it's neat how these small hooks can really make the games just feel different.
Yep, very cool. Now, so we've talked about books and video games, and one thing that I haven't talked about yet, which actually I do this all the time, even when I'm not planning on GMing a game, and that's design an entire adventure or even a campaign around a song.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
And that's I actually when I was doing Serenity, I had 3 huge adventure chains building all at the same time, and each one revolved around a song, and they're totally random songs. And I'm going to give you the listeners an insight in how my brain works, because I play this almost like a game with myself in the car when I'm listening to the music. So one of the songs that I was building an adventure around, or using as the inspiration anyway, was a Convoy. The old song Convoy.
We got a great big convoy.
Running through the night.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
exactly. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, now, to give a very little bit of background to the Serenity game, you had a really amazing spaceship that was a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, almost like a fighter bomber kind of thing that nobody had ever seen before, that the Alliance had developed. And Russ and the other guys who were the player characters were the crew, but they were actually being set up, and almost nothing on the ship worked. It was actually a PR ploy, and they were being set up so that a bunch of the rebel or former rebels were gathered together for this fake conference that they were fooled into going to, and then they were all killed with a nuclear weapon, and things had been sort of shimmied around so that it looked like this brand new this brand new fighter ship had actually fired the missile.
Oh, you got all that from Convoy?
No. I'm laying the groundwork.
Okay, I was just saying, wow, that's a pretty active imagination.
The inspiration for that was everybody was like, yeah, we're going to be brown coats. This is going to be awesome. We're going to be the good guys. And I was like, so kind of like Rafe wanted to begin his play-by podcast at the beginning.
Wow, wait, you really are an adversarial DM. Holy mackerel.
Not really, because what I wanted to do was I want to make it challenging, which I think it was challenging. No, but what I wanted to do was give you make you live your background story.
Right.
So you all wanted to be browncoats. You were going to end up being browncoats because all of you except Dave secretly wanted to be anyway. So when I was like, you guys are members of the Alliance military, and you're like, oh, crap. Okay, well, we'll embrace it. Except for Dave, who was like, yeah, okay, gung-ho, the Alliance all the way, browncoats suck. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work so well.
That's
if you'll remember how that ended. Yeah, and so they end up on the run, and the browncoats don't really trust them because they've been set up to make it look like they killed all the most important browncoat, sympathizers and leaders, and so they've got they're kind of being brought into the fold slowly into this big rebel movement that exists out on the rim. But they have to prove themselves, and you guys and the ship was all shut up, almost completely destroyed in their escape. So they had this awesome ship, and it was full of technology, some of which worked and some of which didn't. And the ultimate goal was that you guys would have eventually, and this is where you were headed, I think, when everything ended, you were going to procure a new ship, but you were going to be able to totally jazz it up with a lot of the really cool stuff from that ship.
And this is what came from the song Convoy.
I'm
with Wes on this here, Craig.
I'm laying the groundwork. Okay,
I don't doubt that you got it all from Convoy, but
no. I'm not there yet. Okay, so the Convoy.
You're not even there yet.
No, so I'm laying the groundwork. So you've got this ship, and you can't really use it. So you've got a core group of guys, the party, for lack of the crew, I think is what it's called in Serenity, and they're being given missions by this committee to prove their loyalty. So they were on, when the campaign fell apart, they were on one mission. that was actually inspired by the TV show Deadwood, which is
not a song. So we're still
which is
working on
not
the
a song.
songs.
But where that was going to go was your next mission was going to be the Alliance had set up this massive tariff system, and so all of the shipping that was going through, like, I mean, you imagine a solar system, and the fastest way to get from one planet to another may be right through the middle of the solar system because they might be like on opposite ends of their rotational, of their rotation. And so if you assume you're in a system like in Serenity where there's like 50 planets and moons, there's probably a lot of that where the transportation has to go through the center of the system.
Right.
So what I set up in my head and what I'd had all written out was the Alliance has now set up this massive tariff system with these huge checkpoints that are these massive space stations, and all of the cargo ships are being forced to stop there, and they're being forced to pay these outrageous tariffs that are actually causing them to lose money, and so the whole system is breaking apart. And the point that the Alliance is trying to do is they're trying to strangle the supplies and any sort of economy that's developing in the rim.
Oh, so that's the part you got from Convoy.
Exactly.
So we got to break through we got to crash the gates to a 98.
So this big consortium of captains, which several of which you had already met even before the campaign died, got together and they decided they can't stop us if we all go together at the same time. So there was this massive convoy of ships that was, and I wasn't going to use the term convoy, but this massive convoy of cargo ships that was going to try to break the blockade and get to the other side of the system, just to prove the point where you can't stop us, so you might as well go back to your regular taxes because we were paying those and everything was fine. So the crew was going to be put on one of these big ships. And they were going to be sort of inserted by the rebels as just like extra workers, but they were really there to make sure that it all worked and everything went well. And there were going to be saboteurs, and I was basing like all the different ships on the different trucks from the song.
So you're going to have rubber ducks and
there was
long-haired hippies
had
in a
already
microbus.
Looked up, and I don't know it now, but I knew the Chinese for rubber duck.
Nice.
And the guy that was the guy that was in charge of the whole convoy was going to be Captain Rubber Duck, but it was in Chinese, so it would have.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So this sounds to me, I mean, you had this whole elaborate plot set up, but then you used the song Convoy to name the characters and ships.
No, the whole plot. Oh no,
Robin, having cargo ships break through a barrier is the whole theme of the song. So
that's the whole
right. But he had this whole elaborate tariff system and worlds and ships, and the economy was breaking down.
But that's all. That was all to fit the song into that universe.
It was all like, that's pretty good. I was
Wow,
gonna,
man.
I was going to ask you for a second sample, but I think we don't have time before Dunks closes for another one. That was pretty good, though. You have another? What's another quick one? You have another quick song sample?
Another quick one was All Along the Watchtower.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
I think that probably inspired George R. R. Martin's books.
It may well have.
Right. All
yeah. So I mean, and so what I'll do is when I'm listening to music, I'll think like, can I fit that into? And you'd be very surprised what you could just pull a couple hooks out of a song you're listening to.
Yeah, that's definitely
that should be a new contest. I would like to hear from listeners who've designed modules or adventures for the characters around songs, and the crazier the better.
that have or that could
either one, because I don't think it's not really a contest yet, but I would just like to hear about them because I don't think I think if anybody told me they were building a scenario around Convoy the song, I'd be like, what? But that sounds like a really cool one. So I'd like to hear some of the crazy songs people have done.
No, not have done. I think
or either one, done or will do.
That they say, I think a cool adventure scenario would be based on this song.
Right.
Ooh, I think that'd be great. That'd be a great contest.
It would be a great contest.
Should we have a contest we don't want to have a contest.
We'll put it in the main show. We'll put it in the main show. But the idea, you heard it here first. The germ of the idea came right here. So if you're a Lost Chapters listener, you have a heads up.
That's right.
Start thinking
of songs,
and we're going to probably
want a one-paragraph explanation,
right? And a description of how you'd fit it into your favorite RPG. It could be any RPG. Doesn't matter.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I like
how it fits in. That's a cool one. I want to give away some kind of RPG prize. We'll figure something out.
Very good. We got to have something.
Yeah, we got. I'm sure we can find something.
Maybe
we've got a whole bunch of Death Watch stuff. We've got a whole bunch of FFG.
Oh, good.
Role-playing stuff.
Yeah, and maybe we could get a Mutant and Masterminds book too.
Yeah, why not? Awesome. We'll see what we can do.
Okay, cool. So anyway, actually my inspiration for this segment was I wanted to explain using Convoy as an inspiration for a role playing adventure.
So what's your inspiration for Adepticons?
My inspiration for Adepticon is going to be
just give us the name of the song.
Throwing up from nerves and. Try to keep it simple.
Here, I'm going to throw some song recommendations out to you to try to inspire you. Ready?
Okay, you do that.
The theme from Dallas.
What?
That'd be a great RPG. No, think about it. Because that's the whole soap opera plot right there.
I got some for Craig.
Who Shot JR thing going on in your campaign.
I got some.
Yeah.
What?
Paradise City by Guns N' Roses. Okay.
Yeah.
Back in Black by AC/DC.
Yeah. Oh, this could be another contest for like a black library. Ooh, it's got to be because there's black library authors that are probably going to, or at least one that's definitely playing in it.
Yes. Ooh, okay. Maybe we should have people guess the song you're going to use.
No, I think they should give suggestions in the one that I choose.
But do you have time for that? I mean, Adepticon's less than a month away.
I have to. I have to come up with something.
No, but I mean, the listeners will be able to get things.
No, you know what? This is going to have to be we've done it on Twitter and whatever, this is a Lost Chapter contest.
The Black Library part.
Yeah.
So give Craig
We'll
some
send you a couple
suggestions.
random Black Library books, and
Right.
I choose the song that you recommend as inspiration for the adventure.
Why not?
Okay.
Why not?
Okay, and
All
by
right.
the time this goes live, that'll give me a couple weeks.
See, I'm already thinking Paradise City for my Chaos RPG.
Well, then don't give that one
Paradise
out.
City, it's filled with decadence, Slanesh.
See, I think you should go for more abstract stuff like Dora the Explorer, or
See, I'll
more
give you a
obscure.
heads up because this is going to be totally subjective. I get to choose what I want, and I'm not going to pick anything like Dora the Explorer.
I don't know. That's an exploration theme. I mean, you got all kinds of good stuff in there.
That's ridiculous.
Not
How is
saying
that
you
ridiculous?
can't do it.
How
I
is
think
that
you
more
totally
ridiculous
could,
than
but I don't think I would
Convoy?
have a lot of fun doing it.
Seriously, how is
Yeah,
that
I
more
agree.
ridiculous than Convoy? Convoy's pretty ridiculous.
He's just trying to tank it because he can't go.
No, I'm not tanking it. I'm thinking of some good ideas there.
I can't
Dora
tell
the
you how.
Explorer.
Seriously. It's
I
got
could just see
backpacks.
it now. Our
Wargear?
apothecary starts to say, "I'm the map. I'm the map.
Oh.
I'm the map."
It's got look.
It
It's
looks at his auspex to find the way.
It's got war gear, right? It's got your backpack. You got to get your war gear out there. It's got your directions and your whole mission objectives, right?
It has
Your
separate languages. So you
three
need to know
mission objectives,
languages.
right? Multilingual support, right? Built right in.
Yeah.
I
I designed an entire 40K army based on the Evanescence song "Bring Me to Life."
See, I'm telling you, it could be anything. Wow. I mean, you could do an entire adventure on Pirate's Life for Me from Disney World. You could do that easily. I mean, there's whole movies about that.
You could, but I would rather take something like Linkin Park or Evanescence or
Well, it's also been done.
Nine
right?
Inch Nails.
Craig would
or-
rather have his Space Marine smacked into a ziggurat with a mudslide than take a song from Dora the Explorer.
I should do that. Oh,
You should. I think you
I
should. You should. I think you should have a scene with Dan Abnett is on a ziggurat.
That's what I was saying. On
and
a
gets hit
ziggurat.
by a mudslide and has to slide down to the bottom.
Dan, what do you think of that? I think you suck.
You sir, I've seen bad
You,
gems in
sir,
my
are
time,
an
sir.
idiot. No space marine would. I don't think that's at all what Dan.
All right, Craig, would it have been better if the entire planet was being ripped in half, but you were standing on the fault line?
Yes.
Yes,
That
it
might have
would.
worked.
At least that's more epic.
Maybe
Yeah.
she can die epically.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Look,
There's
No,
no
it would
shame in
die.
dying when the entire planet it dies with you.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Right.
I'll save that.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be the next adventure Rafe does in the first 5 minutes. Okay, guys, so you land on the planet and it splits in half and you all die. Everybody roll. You've got a
No, and
minus 110.
We'd role play the part where you go into automatic suspended animation because you're voided out into space.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You know, and only one of you lives.
And you have to make a roll.
And then you wake up from stasis,
Yeah.
and it's like system shock.
Oh,
That'd be cool.
there you go. And then you're back in Dark Heresy.
Yes. Yes.
And you're so weak from cryo sleep that you could be killed by a mudslide.
Right.
It all comes back around.
There you go.
So anyway, so that's inspiration for role playing, and it looks like we're going to get kicked out of here soon. Do you want to quickly
indeed.
talk about your favorite movies when you're painting,
I
or
think
we
there might
want
be
to
another
just
segment.
save that for another
I
day?
think there might be another lost chapter. We got to wrap this baby up.
Okay, fine.
So there you go.
I'd like to settle up my tab.
Right.
Oh, it's on you. Oh, that's so nice. They
They're
love
getting to
us
know
here.
us here now. It's really nice.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
All righty. There's
Okay.
Chapter 5.
Good night, all.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.
Try again with what?
Just doing Rafe sound checks.
You have
Go
to
ahead.
give me a minute to bend over there, doofus. How's that?
It's a dial.
Oh, I'm Rafe Hollywood Granger from the D6 generation.
Much better. Greg, give me some audio.
WNBC, WNBC, WNBC.
WNBC, home of the triple time check. It's 8:15, quarter past the hour, 45 minutes before 9 o'clock.
Yay!
All right. Good.
That
We got
was
audio.
perfect.